Welcome to the Pinning Combination Podcast. I'm KJ Pilcher, alongside Hall of Famer Dick Briggs, ready to discuss a little college and high school wrestling here right before the holiday break. Some people already in the holiday break. Our festive Pinning Combination Podcast. As you can see, we invested in ugly Christmas sweaters this year. If you can't see this, try to swell up a little bit. It says, I don't know, Margot, my wife, Christine, has the Why is the Floor All Wet Todd from Christmas Vacation. So we're doing the corny matching couples ugly Christmas sweaters. So this is mine for today. I see you got your shirt and the Red Owens, the Christmas classic.
My wife calls it the ugly T-shirt. I wear it for a tribute to my friend Red Owens, who's no longer alive. But
many years you took Jayhawk teams there,
right? Yeah. So I like it, but I can see where it could be kind of an ugly thing. So
I like it. I like it. That's a menacing ram on the front of that. Well, hey, let's jump into the little bit of college action this last weekend and week. You don't have to look much further than UNI and Iowa State. I know they lost their final duel down in New Orleans at the collegiate duels, but man, if you're a fan or coach or athlete at UNI Iowa State, how can you not be excited and pleased with the way they wrestled down in New Orleans?
Right. It was so fun to follow it. So basically, to set it up for if you're not familiar, they have two pools, a red and a blue pool, and I think there's 6 teams. Is that right in each pool?
Yes.
So 6 teams in each pool. So UNI and Iowa State both finished second in their pool. The pool did not cross over, which is a good thing because you don't want UNI and Iowa State wrestling each other down there. That needs to be in Iowa. And but they both, and it's a really great the teams that are down there. So the competition is a high level. Ohio State. Let's just start with that. I think, huh?
Right.
UNI knocked off Ohio State in the pool play on the first day, and then made it to the championship meet on the second day. So they had two wins on the first day, and then then they had North Carolina State, which they lost to. But that Ohio State, man, which match do you think was a bigger upset, KJ?
Between the UNI and Iowa State.
Which meet would you think was a bigger?
Boy, I just with the dominance that Aaron Brooks has had, I would say Marcus Coleman's win over Aaron Brooks. But how can you not put Real Buto's win over Sasso right on the same plane? I mean, it's a 1A, 1B kind of thing, don't you think?
Well, and then exactly, and start with those two, and then I think you throw in 1C.
Keck Eisen over Hidley. I think the way he won it probably makes it. With that pin on the edge of the mat, suicide cradle, man, that was sweet. I think that was the biggest thing of everything that lost to Hidley from the Vegas Cliff King Vegas tournament earlier. But man, yeah, those 3 wins. Really highlight really good 2 days. Right. I mean, if there are any questions about how good Iowa State is for real, how good UNI is, and how much better they are than maybe a year ago, I think those questions are answered.
Right. And we knew Keck Eisen is great. He's just a great wrestler. And we know I knew that Coleman, and we had mentioned that, was really on a roll this year. And but Real Budo, man, that's the one that kind of that really surprised me of all of those three. I mean, beating Aaron Brooks, a two-time champ, surprised me, of course, but Real Budo beating Sasso, who I think is a fabulous wrestler, and he's such a great
Yeah.
mat wrestler, and so that was a fun outcome there as well. Geez.
Right, we talked about Kekais in the way he beat Hidley, with the fall. You never really would have expected that, not because of Kekheisen, but because of Hidley being so good and talented. You wouldn't necessarily expect him getting pinned, but it's the way that Real Budo beat Sasso as well. How many times have you seen Sasso give up 9 points in a match?
Well,
I can't remember any time I've seen him give up 9 points in a match.
yeah, he's tough to take down. He's such a great scrambler, and he's mat awareness is there. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Jeez.
And for Real Budo to get back points, that 4 near fall, which was huge, in that second period, that says a lot about Real Budo. And we've seen him, get some wins, but his big wins were in that, like, guys that were ranked in the low teens, right? He's shown that he could beat guys occasionally. He beat Blockus. I think Blockus was ranked in the low teens last year, when he beat when they wrestled. But for somebody that's a national finalist and ranked third, right in there in that, Sasso's right in there in that mix, discussion with Yanni and Austin Gomez. Yeah, that was pretty impressive.
Right, and I'm going to go off on a slightly different direction here, but we talk sometimes about rankings not meaning a whole lot. Coaches kind of downplay that, but us, for the fans and for the media, and it gives us a point kind of a point of reference, I guess, to be able to go, this is a darn good wrestler. And Sasso's obviously a national finalist and a ranked third, but when you're beating the number 3 ranked kid in the nation, that's now that you have that barometer, I guess, to judge it by. And so this is a quality win for sure.
Well, definitely. And it came the duel overall, beating Ohio State, who is ranked third by the National Wrestling Coaches Association, coming into this event. Winning 19-13. They had that 4-match win streak. It just was a good team effort. You had Cale Happel really kind of sparking things because they won 19-13, but they were down. They lost the first 2 matches of the duel. Then they went on a little bit of a roll where, Cale Happel got a big takedown. I think it was in overtime, maybe, or at the end of regulation. No, it was in overtime. Sudden victory, right? 7-5 over Dylan D'Amelio, who's actually, I would think he's a lot better than his 18th ranking would show. But big win for Happel, who's stockpiled a few of them so far. Then you got Real Budo's win, Derek Holschlag and Austin. Yant had a heck of a weekend as well. They rifle off 4 in a row. Had a tough one at 74, and let's credit Lance Runyon getting a pin in his debut in the win over Lockhaven that you and I dominated. Then you had Kekheisen come through big, and then it goes down to heavyweight, where I think Schwab kind of alluded to the fact that if we go to criteria, it might go down to match points, and I don't know if we win that. So Tyrell Gordon with a big win over Tate Orndorff, second time this month that he's beat Orndorff, and Gordon closes out a duel again for for them. I mean, that was a good team effort, but also a good showing by guys like Happel and Gordon too.
Right, right. And I'm starting with Apple. I'm really excited. I mean, I was excited to see him wrestle this year. I just when he's when we get to see him in a full-time role, you just that guy's going to soar, I think, and he's starting to show that, and I'm happy for he and his family, and just it kind of it made me think, UNI starts seven Iowa high school products in their lineup, as opposed to I was looking 2 for Iowa State and 3 for Iowa, depending on what lineup they put out there. So so you can't help but pull for the darn Iowa high school guys, and so that's pretty neat. And then Terrell Gordon, man, we watched that guy struggle for the last couple of years. He's down at 97 and then up at heavyweight, and he he was just I'm so proud of him, actually. A West Waterloo product that has just hung with it, and now he's really stepping up, and I hope he's an All-American this year. It's been fun to watch his growth.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. He's a local product like that. We know how Waterloo East has had a storied tradition connected to UNI. Obviously Jim Miller is a big one that kind of stands out as well. But that's great to see. And I think I remember Schwab talking about Gordon really kind of really focusing on getting stronger and growing, kind of building himself into, kind of a Blaze Cabell type heavyweight,
Right. Yeah.
And I think we're kind of seeing that. And I just want to interject here really quick. Got an email from the National Wrestling Coaches Association, and the new top 25 is in. Obviously, Penn State's still number 1, Iowa number 2. Iowa State is up to number 4 in the coaches rankings, and UNI jumps from 20 to 13. They're right in there in the 20 to 22 range. I can't remember depending on the poll. I think it was 20 in the coaches poll. Actually 22nd in the coaches poll last week. Now 13th. We mentioned they hadn't had a duel in the first half of the season, so obviously they've kind of opened some eyes with their performance down in New Orleans. And one last thing for me on the UNI pertaining to Ohio State. Talking to Schwab on the phone after that duel, the one thing that really struck me, he goes, in a duel like that, you have 70 minutes. You have 70 minutes in a duel. Obviously there was some more because you had some victory and everything, but his point, we had 70 minutes, and he goes, I think they wrestled hard every second of that 70 minutes. We got the most effort out of that 70 minutes, and that's a formula for success. And obviously, that's what helped them beat Ohio State.
Well, and you talked about this being their first dual competition of the year and not having any, whereas we with Iowa and Iowa State, they've had quite a number of duels. So it's fun to see the bench when these things are happening on the mat. With the guys are pulling the upsets, and it's just when you have that happen out on the mat, it really lifts the rest of your team and brings that team gel together. And not that Iowa and Iowa State don't have that now, but since it was their first competition, I think it was a little heightened, and so that was fun to see that.
Yeah, and let's talk about Iowa State's. Obviously, what was it? 20. I think 27-12 was the duel against North Carolina State. North Carolina State, a top 10 team, as well. So still a good showing there for UNI. But Iowa State, they handled Oregon State to start off with. Their heavyweight got hurt. Got strained something in the first duel against Oregon State. They had a tough one against Cornell. Had to outlast Cornell 18-13, and they did it by bumping their heaviest three weights up.
Right.
With Joel Devine stepping in at 174, Marcus Coleman, at 184. Marcus Coleman bumped up to 197, and then younger Bastida moved up to heavyweight. And they all got wins, to come away with a victory. But Bastida scored a takedown in the final seconds against number 15, Luis Fernandez, at heavyweight, to kind of secure the duel. That, again, another one that came down to the final match in Cornell. They've got a good lineup. So that's a good showing for Iowa State. But one of the matches that probably was most impressive was the one that they lost at 149. Pinheiro Johnson and Yianni.
Yeah, I'm going to back up 1 minute before I go to that match. With the three that bumped up, it wasn't an easy decision to do that because Cornell's, as you mentioned, their 97-pounder, or I guess you mentioned the heavyweight is ranked 15th, and their 97-pounder is ranked 23rd. So it's not like they're going against slouches and having to, sure, the Iowa State guys are ranked at the lower weights, but you just don't know. That's kind of rolling the dice. So that was a really neat move, gutsy move, on the coach and the wrestlers. I'm sure they had to agree to it. And then, but no, you're right. Down at 149, and that Johnson, man, he is, he's put his name on the national circuit for sure. I mean, people have taken note with him. He has beaten some good ones and wrestled, into overtime here, and and I saw the takedown in overtime, and it wasn't, it's kind of a go behind sort of thing where Johnson got out of position on a shot and was being the aggressor. So, that could turn around. And Joachim Hollis, man, I'm not sure where he's at here. He's I don't know if he's the upper weight, and I know it's not his first time up this weight, but he's just been busy with the World Cup competition and all sorts of things. And
that's kind of the first thing that came to my mind was, maybe that. But then you also remember, he lost before that, right? Gomez beat him earlier this season. So I first thought of the World Cup too, but then again, maybe this is where he's at, and Johnson is right there with that top 4 or 5 guys in the country for sure.
And with Yianni, he was in maybe I'm wrong to do this, but he was in that category where I didn't think he could be beat. I mean, I thought he was that good on the mat, and he is that in control. And then this year, it's just a little bit different story. So obviously he can be beaten. And so that's going to make that weight class. I mean, it's already exciting, but come national time, it's going to be, I mean, there's going to be a couple of them to watch for sure.
Oh yeah. And you can figure, there are going to be some extra meetings here. Sasso and Gomez have got to cross paths here a couple times. The other thing too, you've got just a whole host of, Max Murin. We'll see where that comes in. Johnson beat him, but he's also gives Sasso a run for his money. We'll see how he would do against Gomez, but I think 149 might be a kind of a cluster if things keep going like this when you get to the postseason.
Yeah, no kidding. It might be, who's the healthiest and that sort of thing at the end, and maybe even a little bit of luck, because it's that could go if you wrestle that 10 times, it could go 10 different ways, right?
Right, for sure. And let's not forget too, in the Cornell duel, Corey Kabamban had a win over a ranked wrestler, 2 in sudden victory. So Kabamban actually had a pretty decent finish to the dual tournament. Won that against Cornell, and then followed it with a win against Penn State. Penn State beat Iowa State 22-12 for the pool title there. But Kabamban had a decision. Johnson with a decision over number 17 Shane Van Ness. David Carr beat Alex Facundo. And then, of course, mentioning Marcus Coleman with the win over Aaron Brooks. Iowa State ended up forfeiting 285. So, not sure they would get a win over Kirk Vallette anyway, but definitely, I would doubt it would be 6. So that duel is one that, if a couple things kind of turn around, Iowa State's right there.
Right. Yeah. And then, and that's saying a whole bunch with Penn State. I mean, they're just loaded to the gills. So
Yep.
You're saying that against Penn State. Iowa State is that 4 ranking is very warranted. Just another note, you mentioned Kabamban. He went 2-0 on the weekend. David Carr 3-0 on the UNI side. Real Buto, Austin and Kakaisen all went 3-0. Happel and Gordon went 2-1, and then for Iowa State, Van Ness, Coleman, and Bastida went 2-1. So right. I mean, there's some pretty darn good wrestling, and they did well.
Yeah. So up next, I think for both, is the let's mention the big one at 197 there, really quick. Younger Bastida and Max Dean. Dean comes away with a 4-1 win there. Bastida, pretty much had been wrestling as well as anybody in the country at that weight. I know there's some Iowa State folks that thought he should have been at number 1, given some of the upsets that we've seen already. But Max Dean came away with a 4-1 win. And, still Bastida's right there. I mean, he's been fantastic this first half of the season. And even with the setback, I still think he's for sure proven he's a title contender.
It appears to me to be a kid that doesn't get, he's pretty undaunted. He doesn't get too riled. And so, I mean, he'll get riled, but in a good way.
Yeah.
But, so I don't think that probably bothers him too much. And, especially this time in the season. So, I mean, obviously he doesn't want to lose to Dean. I don't know why Dean was clear down to 5th. I guess I haven't followed it all that much with Dean.
Well, he suffered 2 losses. One to Michael Beard, and I can't remember who the other one was to. But he's suffered 2 close losses early in the season. So
okay.
And I know Bernie Truex from Cal Poly, he bumped up to 197. I'm not sure how. I think he got upset this week too, but I think he was number 1. Bastida was 2. I can't remember where 3 and 4 were, but that's probably why Dean dropped down to the 5. Just those 2. One was in sudden victory, and I think one was late in the match too. So 2 close losses.
Is Warner top 5?
I think he's the 6th.
6? Okay.
I think he's at number 6. But I'd have to kind of hunt those down and see. But
yeah, he had a couple losses.
Right. So Iowa State heads into the break 7-2 overall. UNI 2-1. Soldier Salute next week at Extreme Arena in Coralville. I'm not exactly sure. I know they're listed as being there. Also saw a list of Midlands teams that circulated online that also had UNI and Iowa State listed. So I don't know if they're going to split the team up, maybe send some unattached wrestlers to one and, you know, the rest are going to the other side, or how that's really going to kind of flush out here between those two teams.
KJ, I thought Iowa State was going to the Southern Scuffle.
Well, that's what I think. I think they are. So I'm guessing probably we'll see, some reserves, I guess you could say, or freshmen. But if you look at the teams that are listed on the Soldier Salute website, Iowa State is listed there. And like I said, Midlands, I don't know how accurate the Midlands list was, because I was surprised, they even had Iowa listed there, and I can't imagine Iowa would send wrestlers there when they're planning on being a part of the Soldier Salute in their own backyard. So we'll have to see how that kind of flushes out and what teams decide, because it's not out of the question. They might, you might send, some freshmen here and, your starters, to to the Soldier Salute. It's hard saying, and with those new rules too, um, with how guys can redshirt and they can't redshirt, um, the 4 competitions, before you have to, before you end up burning a red shirt, it's all convoluted and kind of gives me a headache and makes me pass out.
So what are some of the other teams at the Southern, oh, not at the Soldier Salute?
Well,
I have,
some of the teams there, obviously, given the name, the one thing I thought was interesting, the branches of the military are there.
oh,
Not Air Force. I didn't see Air Force, but Navy's there. Of course, a lot of people recognize the folks on Navy's coaching staff. Kerry Colot's the head coach, but you've got Mike Evans, a former Hawkeye, who's his assistant. You have Blaze Cabell, a former Independence Prep and UNI wrestler, is on their staff. So Navy will be there and have some local ties. Army will be coming back for that. Obviously, a lot of people remember kind of the deal with Army and how they came and wrestled in the duel to help Iowa, so they didn't have the open date when Oregon State backed out last year. Virginia Military Institute, I think is what it's called. VMI, they're there, and the Citadel, which is a military cadet school as well. I trying to get the website to open up here, but some of the things listed were like South Dakota State, in the men's thing, Iowa, UNI, Iowa State were all listed. Now some of that might just be partial lineups, or a few, there's some Eastern Iowa guys. Maybe they stay close to home and wrestle in that. We'll see. They also have a girls division where the University of Iowa women's wrestlers will be there. Obviously, not representing Iowa yet. That's not until next season, but they'll be there. Cornell will have a team in it. Simpson will be there as well with their women's team, coached by Jeff McGinnis. William Penn has a team that'll be there. as well. And I'm trying to think. I don't think Augsburg is there with their women's team, but here I finally have. So the teams listed on the Soldier Salute website. We mentioned the military schools: Navy, Army, Virginia Military Institute, and the Citadel. They have Iowa, UNI, Iowa State, Wisconsin, Columbia, Bellarmine, South Dakota State, Wyoming, and Minnesota as part of the field. Now, again, I texted Damian Hahn to try to find out, like, if Tanner Sloan will be there, and if their starters are there. They have strong Iowa connection in their starting lineup at South Dakota State. Never heard back. So those are the teams that they have listed on their website. The women's here's the one that Life University.
Oh yeah.
Their women's team is going to be there. And of course, if you follow NAIA wrestling, Life University is right there with Grandview. Maybe not right there with Grandview, but they're one of the top NAIA programs. Indiana Tech, which is there as well. Iowa Wesleyan, Iowa, William Penn, Central Methodist, Columbia is coming, and then they have the Army World Class Athlete program for women will be part of that field as well.
Well, you mentioned Life. Life actually won the the NAIA National Championship 2 years ago, right? Didn't they break Grandview string on the men's side?
Yeah, their streak.
And I think they won the girls, if I'm not the women's, if I'm not mistaken. But
I believe so.
Great programs there. So
yeah. Yep. And they've had some wrestlers compete internationally as well. So real strong field there, especially on the women's side. But that is December 29th and 30th at Extreme Arena in Coralville. So that'll be the only action there during the break. So let's kind of shift gears here. I'm gonna grab my notes. Let's shift gears. Well, do you have any? I guess before we go into preps, I do want to mention that Upper Iowa finally got back on the mat last weekend. They finished sixth at the Midwest Classic at the University of Indianapolis. They had 4 medalists and 76.5 points total. Chase Lensman led the way, reaching the finals and getting second at 165 pounds. Tate Murdy was fourth at 141, and heavyweight Zach Rigg was fifth. The other medalist, and I thought this was pretty interesting and kind of a cool feat. Dalton Hahn, first time he's competed for Upper Iowa in 2 years. He made his debut at 197 and ended up finished sixth. That's a huge tournament, very competitive field, and at the D2 level. So kind of neat he was able to get back to the mat. I don't really know or remember the circumstances of why he's been away from competition, but good for Dalton Hahn coming back and placing in that tournament last weekend.
Right, and this tournament is the 43 teams that are there, so you're 32 man plus brackets. In other words, 32 man plus pigtails to get into the tournament, I suppose. So you had your Murty and Rigg both went 5 and 2 to place, and they had some other guys that didn't place. They had 3 guys that went 3 and 2, and 2 guys that went, or 1 guy that went 2 and 2, along with their 4 medalists. So I mean, that's a deep tournament. So here's guys that are close to medaling as well. So to take 6 out of 43 teams, that's really doing a great job with the Upper Iowa team.
Did you happen to catch the Desert Duels or any of the D3 action from
The Desert Duels,
last weekend?
I just says the teams were not even competitive with Wartburg, so you know, I sometimes wonder if it's why the effort. They
Just
didn't win a match.
reason to go on a trip, right?
Yeah, exactly. But there's been some other Division III things going on. The Gator Boot Duels that
Oh yeah.
Luther hosts down in Nashville, Tennessee. So Luther ended up going 4-0 on that. They beat Alma, Alaverna, Trine, and York College of Pennsylvania. And then Donovan Korn was elected as the American Rivers Conference athlete and wrestler of the week. He had 3 pins and a decision over the 15th ranked wrestler. So
Is he still at 184?
he dropped to 184. He's mostly
Okay.
been at 97, and now he's at 184. So yes, he still is.
Boy, that surprised me when I saw that earlier this year, just because, you know, he looked like a good sized 97 pounder.
Well, he's big,
You
long,
know?
tall, big, long, tall frame. So yeah, that's
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yep.
he could make a lot of noise at 184, I think, when it's all said and done. I know it's a really tough weight class, but you know, he could be a wild card in there.
Right. Yep. I mean, who knows? He's absolutely in the hunt, I would say, at this point in time. Then you had the University of Duke was also there, and they went 1-2, and their win was over Huntington, which is in their regional. So that's a match up there. Loris was at the Kalahari Duels in Sandusky, Ohio, and they went 4-0. They beat Concordia, Minnesota, Adrian, Heidelberg, and Otterbein. Did a pretty decent job. Concordia, that was their closest meet at 28-19. And then Cornell's, like we mentioned, they're stepping it up. They went 4-0 at the Prairie Wolf Duels over in Lincoln, Nebraska, and they're currently 6-2 overall in duels. They beat Nebraska Wesleyan. Your Beavers. This is pretty. The Beavers are starting to come around a little bit too, and then Westminster, and then the MSOE, Milwaukee School of Engineering, and so they had a good weekend as well. And Co was off, so
yeah, Co. I think a handful of years ago, I think Ostendorp kind of decided this was a good time for them to kind of rest, and instead of going on a trip and having competition between finals and, you know, when things restart in January, they decided just to kind of train and stuff, and it looks like they kind of stick to that kind of going forward.
they used to attend the Desert Duels and wrestle out there, and then it's up, probably 2-3 years ago, maybe I think they stopped going. So I did get to 3 of their. This is kind of good news. I want to share this. 3 of the co-wrestlers were helping Sunday referee out at the Prairie Hammer Hawks tournament, youth tournament.
Oh, awesome!
Including 2 of their varsity for sure, and so it's good to see those young guys getting out on the mat and getting back. And you know what? It's a good opportunity.
Oh, yeah,
to make a little bit of money. So that was nice.
No, for sure, for sure. That's always like seeing those guys willing to, to kind of give back and help kids that were in their spot, 15 years ago or so.
Yeah, and you're putting yourself out there as an official, and if you're kind of unsure, you just it just takes a little, some of those youth tournaments to get your confidence up, and I'm sure they did a good job. I was in the other gym. I didn't get to watch them very much, so but yeah, I know I talked to them during break, and they were having a good time. Said there was no issues, so good for them.
Awesome.
And there's
AJ.
I got to mention one other thing.
Okay.
There was one gal, and I did not know her name. She was a 16-year-old girl that was also roughing that day. So great. I'm so
That's
happy to see
awesome.
that. Yeah.
Awesome. I hope that leads to a lot more. Um, you know, uh, we need them more than ever now.
Yes, we do.
So hopefully, we see more kind of following in her footsteps, and especially maybe some of the other female wrestlers that are kind of going through, the women's wrestlers that are in college programs now, when they get done competing, um, turn to officiating. So our younger wrestlers have, you know, the officials and have those opportunities and to keep competing.
Right. And she spent most of the day being mentored. So she was the second referee with Kent Sesker, who's a phenomenal
Oh,
referee out of high school and college and anyway, so she was, and
she'll
then
learn quite a bit with Kent.
right, and then at the end of the day, she said she did get to blow the whistle, and so that was great. When she felt confident enough to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great, and that's how you really do need to kind of work them in any new official. It's a great learning opportunity, and like you said, then when you're confident enough to take control, step in there, and you'll be very prepared.
Right.
Well, let's shift gears to a few high school meets here before we end for the holiday break. Obviously, the Battle of Waterloo was the biggie last weekend. Um, Man, that championship pool, that I mean, that's what you kind of hope to see when you have four really good teams. It hasn't necessarily been the case um, every year. I mean, they've had some dandies, obviously up there, but this one you had a three-way tie between Waverly, Shell Rock, Osage, and Ankeny, all going 2-1. And when was the last time you saw Don Bosco go 0-3 and uh, dual competition like that? But man, um, what a fun championship competition there in Waterloo at Young Arena.
Right, and in that final pool with those four teams, two of them had to really kind of pull upsets, I guess you could call it. Ankeny and Don Bosco were not seeded; they had to beat higher seeded teams just to
Mhm.
get in there. So good for them. Ankeny was kind of the unknown for me, so I was really impressed with what they did. And I mean, they were part of that round robin. You know, the all top three teams both went 2-1 against each other.
Yep.
So Ankeny's going to be fun to watch in terms of what goes on in that CIML. League.
Yeah, I've got to eat a lot of crow because if you remember last week, I was the one saying, "Oh yeah, Linmar." Um, we weren't sure about some of the others, but we gave Linmar a pass, and he said, mm-mm.
Yeah.
And then to follow that up by not just qualifying for the championship pool, but then finishing that three-way tie with Waverly, Shell Rock, and Osage, that's pretty impressive.
Now, Ankeny won 37-36, but I didn't see, was that criteria? Or was it just a 37-36 score overall?
I think it was 37-36 because I think uh, Osage won the final match. I think it was 37-30 going into the final match.
Okay.
But I don't know what criteria was. I haven't asked anybody what criteria was with the three teams finishing 2-1 and all beating each other. I wondered if it was total points scored, or points allowed, or something like that.
I think KJ, I'm not sure where I heard this, but I'm pretty sure I heard that it was the least amount of penalty points, individual penalty points.
Oh, really? Okay, interesting.
I thought I heard that somewhere. So I mean, 75% sure that was the case. But
okay, I trust you on that. So either way, Osage coming away with the week before they handled they beat West Delaware pretty handily in a tournament format. They follow that up by winning the Battle of Waterloo against teams like Waverly. I mean, boy, Osage has got to be really happy with it, where they're at heading into the break, because they look like they're head and shoulders above the rest, especially in 2A.
Right. And I agree with you. Right now, 2A looks like Osage and then the rest of the field. And then 3A looks to be pretty competitive, again. And then 1A also pretty competitive. But you're right, Osage is right now my front runner in the three classes.
Yeah. And then obviously Don Bosco is going to be, they're right there in kind of where they've been in 1A. Even though I think maybe it's going to be a little bit of a closer feel with Alburnett and Lisbon, you know. Alburnett finished 13th overall in the Battle of Waterloo. Lisbon, very short-handed because of illness and injury, I believe. Still, they finished 24th overall. But I think 1A could be kind of interesting with those three teams when it's all said and done. Some of our area boys teams, Linmar was 6th, West Delaware 7th, Prairie 8th. City High finished 19th. They were a little short-handed too. They didn't even make it out of the quarters. They didn't even finish. It was beat Osage, get to face Osage. I can't remember who knocked them out in the very first round, but they finished 19th overall. West Butte 21st, Union 29th. Indy I think was 14th, 15th in there, 14th.
Yes, Alburnett was 13th and Independence 15th.
Okay. So, I just think some really good showings there. I know some of might want a little bit more or whatever, but I think really that championship pool just kind of really shows how strong this tournament was. And we'll see what kind of strides teams like Linmar, what Linmar makes, West Delaware, if they can close the gap on Osage. It's kind of interesting to see. The dual rankings came out on Monday from the Iowa Wrestling Coaches and Officials Association. Of course, this probably had a big impact on how those played out a little bit, but the IWCOA rankings are pretty important because they have an impact directly on regional duels and seeding and stuff like that. So just to give the top 5 in each class after the Battle of Waterloo, it's Bendorf is actually number 1, which I thought was a little surprising. Southeast Polk number 2. Then you've got Waverly, Shell Rock, Ankeny, and Linmar, those teams from the Battle of Waterloo at 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Then you got Fort Dodge, Johnston, West Des Moines Valley, Iowa City High, and Indianola to finish out the top 10. In 2A, no surprise, Osage number 1, West Delaware number 2. Then it's followed by Sergeant Bluff Luton. Mount Vernon's number 4, which, we thought we've seen and been impressed with the Mustangs early on. Then you've got Creston, West Burlington, Notre Dame, Independence, Webster City, Humboldt, Winterset. In 1A, you've got Don Bosco, Alburnett. Then you've got Lisbon and Nashua Plainfield tied for 3rd. Nashua Plainfield actually battled West Delaware pretty darn tough in the semifinals of the bracket competition. Wilton's number 5, Loma 6th, Emmitsburg number 7, Wapsie Valley 8, Woodbury Central 9, and MFL Marmac 10. That's your top 10 teams in all 3 classes. But
so the important line there, and it's kind of a fuzzy line, is the 8th. Who's 8th and who's 9th? So the 8th theoretically hosts a regional if it's still the same way. Actually, I'm not sure this year what the change.
It's supposed to be, but there's that caveat in the IHSAA memo that says if possible.
Right, that's the fuzzy line.
If possible. So that's where they have a little leeway of, well, this number 8 team's going to end up having to go here, and number 9 or number 10 end up hosting instead.
Right.
You know, they'll reference things like geography and travel, all that kind of stuff, you know, depending on how that iron's out.
So you kind of want to keep an eye on that. Who's ranked 8th in the IWCOA rankings, and who's, because that's going to be the host schools, and that should be coming out here pretty soon, I think.
It should be.
Well,
I think in January, early January, they have another vote. And then that will lock things in place there.
Oh, I think I'm thinking of the girls. That might be, that's going to be coming out sooner, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, that should come that first week of January, where the girls teams will be split between the regionals as well. And that's actually a good segue to kind of go back and mention the Battle of Waterloo girls bracket too. That was won by Cedar Falls. Their first championship there, I believe. Bettendorf, Waverly Shellrock, Osage, also a part of that championship bracket in the girls. As far as area schools go, East Buck was number 6, Linmar number 7, and Indy number 13. So, good showings there. But it still amazes me just how that contingent in Northeast Iowa were ahead of the game, and they still are. And you look at Cedar Falls, Waverly Shellrock, and Osage, and what they were able to do.
Right, and I was surprised. I didn't know Cedar Falls was that strong. So they had a good program, but to win that with those other programs in there, so that surprised me a bit. So good for the Tigers.
Yeah, and I was really impressed. East Buck, again, not surprised there. East Buck's been, they've had some outstanding individual wrestlers there, but they've got some depth and some balance too. And East Buck's program is in really good shape right now, and they showed that on Saturday or Friday and Saturday. Let's touch on. We'll finish just kind of mentioning the news with the girls super regionals, but let's hit a couple of tournaments from last Saturday here really quick. I was at North Lynn. The Lynx Invitational, a really good small school tournament for the most part. There were a few others that joined the field this year because the Doug Phillip Duels is kind of was taking a year off. But Benton Community came away with a win there. They had 10 semifinalists. They put 4 in the finals and had a champ in Brendan Haying at 152. But the Cedar Rapids Xavier, they're the ones that their tournaments off for a year, so they go to North Lynn to fill the date, and they end up finishing just 8 points behind Benton. They had 2 champs, put 5 in the finals. Got championships from Kale Master at 113 and Ryan Hofer at 120, both with pins in the finals. And you know, Xavier looked good. I think they finished in the top 5 at Mount Vernon the week before. And here, there's a handful of years ago where, they had a real good nucleus. They had like 4 or 5 wrestlers that, kind of led the way. And, you know, you get titles from Lemaster and Hafer. You've got some wrestlers like Ronan Thomas, who was in the finals. Um, Grant Helmley has wrestled well. Um, Also, you've got Adam Cook made the finals. Keaton Tresnick made the finals. I think they've got some guys kind of moved around a little bit. This was coming on the heels of canceling practices and duels because of illness,
Right.
so they bounced back really tough, and I think they might be closer to having a team like they had a few years ago that uh, competed in the regional duels. Actually.
Right. It's been fun to watch their youth and their middle school kids coming through. And the X-Men program that they have over there is starting to produce. So it's continuing to produce, I guess. So we like that.
Cedar Rapids, Washington had a champion, Brendan Gears. He's down to 106. It's his second individual title. He won by fall in the finals. Like I said, he's down to 106. That's the second title in 3 weekends. So a good start for Brendan Gears and a good way to go into the break. But probably the best overall performance of the day came from Cale Bridgewater. He teched his way through the 138-pound bracket. No surprise that he won, but boy, he was dominant. Outscored his opponents 58-11 in 3 matches. So pretty impressive performance by him. And talking to him afterwards, state place winner his first 2 years. Last year qualified, didn't make it. This year is his last go round. He said he's really focused on just having fun. Just having fun, and the best way to do that is go out there and score a lot of points and just let things go. And boy, he's done that so far. He's got 1 loss. I think he's 16-1. Gave up a defensive pin in the first match of the year, I believe, to Anamosa, and then he's just been on a tear ever since. So, um, you know, uh, I really think there are big things for him, and I know he's ranked like number 1 by uh, some groups, some rankings right now, and probably deservedly so.
Well, Bridgewater's a pretty decent name out there in lots of sports, and dad and sisters, right? Sisters.
Yep, Kenzie, his older sister Hannah, I believe, is at UNI. I believe his younger sister is Kenzie, who's an outstanding athlete as well. And a lot of, Brad was a longtime coach at Northland, was a state medalist for Jerry Eckenrod at Benton Community. I believe he wrestled at Simpson. The thing that a lot of people don't realize is that their mother, Jody, Brad's wife, Jody, was a member, I believe, of Simpson's national championship softball team. So you've got some very competitive people in that family. So, it's no surprise that we see just the accomplishments that that Kale's done.
And AJ, they had Northland had a second champ, didn't they?
Yep, they sure did. Landon Helmrich came away with a fall. Probably one of the bigger, go by rankings, it would be one of the bigger upsets where he pinned Chase Wickwire of Belle Plaine in the finals in 120. And actually, I think he was up 5-0 or 5-1 when he did it. So, Wickwire has been ranked like anywhere between 5 and 8, definitely top 10. And for Helmrich to come away with a fall there was pretty impressive.
Yeah. And Belle Plaine had a champ, since you mentioned.
Yep. Margot, he won, I believe, at 145. And then Mac Valley also had a champ too. And their 195 pounder, Nathan Beats as well. So Woodbury Central is there. They actually finished with the most champs, even though they finished kind of a distant third, I believe. They had 3 champs overall, just to edge out Xavier, Northland, and Dubuque Senior, who had 2. So that's one of the tournaments. I'll just mention a couple of things, and you can add in. MFL Marmac won the tournament at Regina. They had 2 champs. Carter Decker was one of them, winning at 145. Sigourney Kyoto, Knoxville, and West Branch all had 3 champs in the field, but MFL with a little bit more balance. And then kind of mention Jessup won the Doug Guilford tournament up in Starmont. They beat Walk On by 39.5 points. East Buck ended up finishing 3rd overall, and they had 3 champs. Tanner Thurn, Clay Wilgenbush, and Cody Fox, who's back after missing a week. But he, due to injury, and he's back on the map.
Okay. I found this one interesting. It's the Red Owens, right? Red Owens, sure. The Red Owens
exactly.
duels.
Yep.
There are 5 teams there this year, so they made it a dual tournament. That's bouncing back and forth between a dual tournament and an individual tournament. But a significant result there. That's why I'm bringing it up. So first was Southeast Polk, second was Bettendorf, third was Dowling, fourth was Atlantic, and then fifth was Iowa City West. And then, but we just mentioned, I think we just mentioned that Bettendorf's the #1 ranked team, right?
Yep.
Number 2, and Southeast Polk beat Bettendorf 39-36. So that's significance there.
Yeah, which is, I was a little surprised, when the rankings came out on Monday. Guessing probably the vote was maybe tallied and compiled before the weekend, maybe, but
Oh, I'm sure it was, because coaches don't do things fast. So they were probably 2 weeks ahead before then. And I don't know how thorough they are at doing it.
Sure.
Personally.
One other thing on the boys' side, Fort Madison had their annual tournament. Dubuque Hempstead won that. Fort Madison was 2nd. PCM was 3rd. Clear Creek Amana finished 4th, and Kennedy was 5th. Clear Creek was led by Caden Fawn, who was a finalist at 182. For Kennedy, I believe they had 2 third-place finishers with Cale Smithhart at 138, and then Colin Falk at 160.
Right. I think Clear Creek Amana had another runner-up, maybe Nash.
Cale Nash, I missed that.
I think he was a runner-up also. So
okay.
Yeah, I could be wrong there. Notre Dame had 3 champs, as you might suspect. They're real solid kids there, of course. And then they finished way down. But how many teams were in that tournament? It's quite a big tournament. It's a 2-day tournament.
Yeah, it's well into double digits. I want to say isn't it close to 20?
I thought so. I think you're right. So anyway, good tournament.
Yep. On the girls' side, a couple girls tournaments to touch on that occurred. Cedar Rapids Prairie had their girls' tournament. They always used to have like a winter classic, but that kind of got pushed out by the Battle of Waterloo and stuff like that on the boys' side. But the girls having that tournament now, they had 5 champs. Led by Mackenzie and Maddie Childers, Jade Heenick, one of those champs for Cedar Rapids Prairie, kind of led the entire field with 5 winners. Kennedy ended up with 4 champs. Ella Brown, I believe it's is it Evelyn McDowell, JC Bedell, and Shannon Dolan coming away with titles there. Williamsburg had 3 champs. I think Phoenix Grip might have been one of them there. Vinton Schellsburg had a champion, Chloe Sanders. Of course, we know Sanders on the boys' side. I think Cooper ranked number 1 there for the Vikings. Cedar Rapids, Washington had a champ in Carly Klein, I believe. Jefferson had a champ in Mimi Quindu. And then Marion's Natalie Headland, who is a freshman. I know Jason Haig's been really high on her. She came away with a title. And then Iowa City West's Janelle Avila. She won there. Obviously, one of the top girls is state champion for West. And then one, I just mentioned it just because I know she's doing double duty where she's on the basketball team. I don't think she plays a ton at Benton, but Jessica DeMoss. She her first year out for wrestling, she won the title for Benton at Prairie. But she's doing double duty where she's playing basketball and wrestling at the same time. So kind of interesting there at Prairie.
Right, and let me break it down a little bit. I was out there in Ruffin, and
Did you rep the?
yeah, and so they have 32 brackets, and the girls did a 6-man round robin, so they had 5 matches each, which is a lot. That's a lot for starting on. Maybe too many. I don't know. I haven't talked to anyone, but so that, and Prairie does a really nice job. So let me set the stage. In the big gym, they have 4 mats there, and their gym is big enough to hold that and still have all the bleachers pulled out. And then they had 2 in their old gym there, and they also had a junior varsity boys tournament going on. So the girls were in the big gym, and then the junior varsity boys were up in the old gym, and then also they had 2 mats in their cafeteria, and they had that on Saturday and Sunday. And so, which is kind of neat because it's you have all that daylight coming in, and so it's
right.
In the gymnasium you have lots of light, and so that's a different setting as well. So it's kind of neat to see that. But Prairie did a real nice job hosting that. They had 180 girls wrestling, and like I said, the 6-man round robin. And so I got to thinking. I got looking. So there's 285 boys teams listed on track wrestling in Iowa, and there's 188 girls teams on track wrestling. So now that got me to thinking, and I asked you, about one of the schools in town here that I'd forgotten, and you said they're combining. So I guess there's a lot of girls, but they're probably combining to make make their teams or to fill out their teams. And down the road, I'm sure they'll add. So that's just something to consider and know where we're at in the girls' side.
Yeah. Talked to Aaron Kirtley yesterday, putting something together just about, kind of the feel and how this first half of the season has gone, because, it's just seemed to have it's exploded, even more than people could have imagined when they decided, hey, we'll go full bore with it, right? Aaron Kirtley mentioned that think I think what she said was the idea was hope to double the amount of girls that were at the state tournament last year, right? So I think there were like 700 some girls that actually like registered. Not that many actually competed at the IWCOA meet, but you're thinking about a little over 700 that initially registered. So about 14 to 1500 girls this first year, and it's just blown up to 2500.
Mhm.
You know, um, one of the things that they had to do because of it was to go from 4 super regionals to 8 regionals. They're still going to have those 4 sites, so they'll have 2 regionals at each site. But because of that, they just, this overwhelming boom in the first half. And, I know we've talked about it before. We've had coaches kind of mention, you know, they had people that were set to be managers, and they walked in the gym for the first tournament and decided, hey, would it be okay if I wrestled instead of be a manager? And they're like, yeah, okay, go for it. And the numbers have just kind of grown. I mean, obviously, it's not consistent. It's not a flat. Uh, every program has had this swell of participation, but you've seen some where teams are in the 20s and even more than that. Um, you might have a team that only has about 3 or 4 girls out, but you have some programs that have just absolutely uh gone beyond what they thought the interest would be.
Right. And credit the coaches, credit the girls that for sport for the sport and with recruiting their friends or their sisters, and credit the parents for encouraging it. I talked to Kinsey Childress Saturday at weigh-in, and I said, Kinsey, tell me again how many were out for Prairie. How many girls were out for Prairie wrestling last year? And she said 2. And on Saturday they had 22 registered in that tournament. So
Wow.
I mean, it went from 2 to 22 just at Prairie alone. And you can go across the board and see schools like that. So I'm not even a little bit surprised to hear that. And we've also said that this should have happened years before this year. So it's just kind of I'm so glad it's happening in this positive way, but it also makes you go, why didn't we do this sooner? But
yeah, right.
Place.
But it's I think personally, I think the first half has gone well. I think teams are, boys and girls programs are working with each other, from what it sounds like. Um, the competitions, the only thing that is hard this first year, and probably not much you really could have. I don't I don't know with an individual sport like wrestling how it's avoidable, but the competitions, it's hard to differentiate between, okay, these are the varsity competitors, these are the JV competitors. They're grouping people, according to kind of weight and skill level at some places. You know, it's hard to differentiate between, okay, this person won at 120, but is it the same type of win than this person had at 195 or at 110? You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, just because it's a different skill level, and we differentiate between varsity and JV on the other side, and stuff like that. But that's really super minor as far as I'm concerned. Um, but the way things have gone this first half of the season, um, I think it's just gone well, or as can be expected, if not better.
Right. And to your point regarding that, some of the girls, some of the elite girls that have been wrestling all their lives, that through all the youth tournaments and so forth, that that they're having to now wrestle in a room with girls that haven't wrestled, so they may not have much competition or much many pushing them there. So because now they're used to maybe competing and practicing with the boys, and now they're stepping down a little bit. So there's that part of it as well. Then you've got, like I said, I talked to Kinsey and her sister Maddie, who's was my daughter's teammate on the Jefferson swimming team. They combined the two schools, and so for her to come out, Kinsey, I don't know if Kinsey had anything to do with that, or Maddie just decided to do it, but it was out of her comfort zone. She's they're two different types of people there, so it's really interesting to see that just within that family. So that's pretty neat. But you're seeing that all over the state. But people are joining the sport, and I hopefully they're enjoying it.
Right. And one of the other competitions, Liberty held a tournament on Monday. 15 teams were there, over 200 wrestlers competed on Monday night. Southeast Polk won it. Pleasant Valley was second, and then Iowa Valley was third. How many other sports do you see Iowa Valley, size-wise, and Iowa Valley compete with a Southeast Polk or a Pleasant Valley?
Well,
And to me, that's kind of refreshing because, I kind of like seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, early on, you're going to see a lot of that. I think that's I suppose if you went back and looked at early boys competition back when it was a one class, wrestling,
Yeah.
and then eventually two class, and now three. So I'm sure you probably had that going on there too. But
Sure.
yeah, that's an interesting note. I like that.
Yeah. And then just a couple things from that. We mentioned Chloe Sanders winning at Prairie. She also won the 130-pound title at Liberty. Her teammate Bree Swanson for Vinton Schellsburg won at 110. And then City High had a champ, and Aaron Anderson, that City High and Liberty squeezed in duels on Wednesday, with City High winning both the boys and the girls duels before the snow hit and kept us off TV and everything else.
Yeah, that darn snow.
And then one last thing with the girls, they did announce the regional sites, 4 regional sites for 8 regionals now instead of the 4 super regionals. The Tyson Event Center in Sioux City will host 1 and 2. The Iowa Event Center in Des Moines will host regionals 3 and 4. 5 and 6 will be at the Alliant Energy Powerhouse Arena here in Cedar Rapids, and then Luther College will host regions 7 and 8 up in Decorah. And that was announced this week as well.
And those will run concurrently?
Yep.
This time? Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, and like you mentioned, we'll find out kind of where the teams will be sent for those regionals. The early, I think the first or maybe second week of January. So,
Got that to look forward to.
yep. Just so everybody knows, next week we will be off for the holidays. We'll come back. There's the only thing really going on, Soldier Salute, Southern Scuffle, but we can catch up with that that first week of January. So just to say once again, thanks to everybody that clicks and watches the Pinning Combination podcast. Dick and I love talking wrestling, but we also love being able to provide you guys with opinions and results and highlighting the area wrestlers and teams and coaches. Thank you guys for following us and giving us the opportunity to be able to cover wrestling and bring this to you.
I'll just end it with Merry Christmas to everyone.
Happy holidays to everybody. We'll see you in 2023. We'll have a new year. And Briggsy, why don't you take us out?
Let's keep wrestling on the moon.